Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barak Nabi Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. طيب. Okay, what I'm going to do, guys, Amr, you read, I'll tell you when to stop. Just read until I tell you to stop. Huh? You can just read the English. Just for the sake of time. Just for the sake of time. Let me get organized here, I think. Okay, go ahead. Tfadal.
The book of Siyam, fasting. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, do not fast for a day or 2 days ahead of Ramadan, except a person who is in the habit of observing a particular fast. He may fast on that day. Agreed upon. Narrated Ammar bin Yasir, radiallahu anhu, he who fasts on a day that the starting of Ramadan is doubted has disobeyed Abu Qasim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Al-Bukhari mentioned it as a mu'allam, where it comes to trace it back to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a mawsul, and Ibn Hibban graded as sahih.
طيب, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam rasulullah. These two ahadeeth, you can give them the heading. Fasting the day of doubt. Fasting the day of doubt. Fasting the day of doubt. Unfortunately, that particular heading is not under the headings on your outline, so you can add it there. Fasting the day of doubt. So these two hadith, you can give them the heading, fasting the day of doubt. At-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, العمل على هذا عند أهل العلم كرهوا أن يتعجل الرجل والصيام قبل دخول رمضان لمعنى رمضان. So what does the Tirmidhi say? He says that this is something which the scholars have all what? Accepted and applied. They dislike or discourage that a person would do what? Hasten in fasting before Ramadan with the intention of Ramadan. Okay? They dislike and discourage this. So what is disapproved of and what is disallowed and discouraged by the scholars, prohibited by the Prophet ﷺ, is fasting the day of doubt. But what is the day of doubt? The day of doubt is that day wherein no clouds and no rain prohibited or prevented the sighting of the moon. The day of doubt is that day wherein no clouds and no rain prevented the sighting of the moon. You guys follow me? That is the day of doubt, which means the day when cloudiness, overcast, rain prevented the sighting of the moon. That is not called what? The day that follows that is not called the day of doubt. You guys get that? It's not called the day of doubt, which means if a person fasted it, ihtiyatan, he fasted as a precautionary measure, with the intention that if this is from Ramadan, then what? I'm fasting it with that intention. Ihtiyatan, as a precautionary measure, he wouldn't be considered from the people who violated this hadith. And if it turned out that that was actually the first day of Ramadan, other people would have to do what? Make up that day, but he wouldn't have to make up that day. And this is how the companions understood the hadith and actually practiced. They actually used to do what? They actually used to fast that day with the intention of what? Of it perhaps being Ramadan. If it were Ramadan, this was my intention that it would be from Ramadan. And this was the practice of Ibn Umar and Aisha and Asma and Muawiyah and other companions. And they would fast it istihbaban la wujuban. They would fast it what? As a recommended practice, not what? As an obligatory practice. Meaning, there's no harm if a person what? Doesn't fast it because he's not sure it's what? It's from Ramadan. But if he fasted it as a recommended practice, as a precautionary measure, and it turned out that that was the first day of Ramadan, then that would be what? Accepted from him as such. And while other people would have to make qada, he wouldn't have to make qada. They would have to make it up. He wouldn't have to make up that day because he fasted that day. Make sense?
This would be the 30th of Sha'ban?
Yes. It would be the day that could potentially be what? The 30th of Sha'ban or the 1st of Ramadan. But what prevented them from knowing for certain was what? Was overcast, cloudiness, or rain. Make sense? So we won't understand what did the Prophet intend by the day of doubt. He meant that day where no what? No cloudiness, no overcast, no rain prevented them from seeing the moon. That's the day of doubt. And that one what? You don't fast. Got it? طيب تفضل عمرو.
Hadith 529, narrated by Ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu. I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say, do not fast till you see the new moon, and do not break your fast till you see it. But if the weather is cloudy, calculate when it should appear. Agreed upon. Muslim has, if it is cloudy, calculate 30 days when it should appear. Al-Bukhari has, wait till 30 days of the previous month have passed. Another version by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu has, complete the calculation of 30 days of the month of Sha'ban. Hadith 530, narrated Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. The people tried to sight the new moon, and he informed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he had seen it. So he fasted and commanded the people to fast. Abu Dawood reported it, and Al-Hakim and Ibn Hibban graded it Sahih. Hadith 531, narrated Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. A Bedouin came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, I have seen the new moon of Ramadan. He asked, do you testify that there is no God but Allah? He replied, yes. He then asked, do you testify that Muhammad is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He replied, yes, I do. He then said, Bilal announced to the people that they should fast tomorrow. Reported by Al-Khamsa and Ibn Khuzaymah. Ibn Hibban graded it Sahih, and Al-Nasa'i preferred it as Mursal.
But the last hadith, first of all, these are hadith, we can give them the heading as you find in your outline, confirming the inauguration and cessation of Ramadan. Confirming the inauguration and cessation of Ramadan. That's the heading for these hadith. The last hadith was declared weak by Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala. It was declared weak by Al-Albani, the last hadith. There are some masail, some issues that we benefit from these hadith. The first one, bima tathbut al-ru'ya, the sighting of the moon. By what means is it confirmed? Is it sufficient that one Muslim would testify that he saw the moon, and his testimony alone will be sufficient for us to what? Recognize the acceptance, or recognize that the month has truly begun and fast? The correct opinion, according to Ata, Shafi'i, and Ahmad, is that the sighting of what? Of one person is sufficient. And that's indicated by what? The hadith themselves. That Ibn Umar, he said, I saw the moon, I informed the Prophet, and he ordered the people to fast. Wadah? Suppose the one who testified was a woman. One woman saw the moon and testified. Would her testimony be accepted? Would her testimony be accepted? We go back to the usul, ya ikhwan. We go back to the usul, and as we mentioned, man hurim al-usul, hurim al-usul. That one of the fundamental, we said that whoever was deprived of these principles will be deprived of what? Reaching the correct conclusion. And the principle teaches us that when it comes to the matters of the deen, men and women are what? The same. And the rules and regulations for them are the same, unless we have proof to the contrary. So just like if a man testifies that he saw the moon, if a woman testifies that she saw the moon, that testimony would be what? Would be accepted. طيب. The next issue is, suppose a person was not aware that the moon had been sighted. Woke up the next morning and ate. And then during the daytime, he found out that it was what? Ramadan. He would immediately do what? He would immediately start fasting. He wouldn't continue what? Eating and drinking, because he didn't know. And now that he knows, he has to what? Respect and comply with the month. Right? But does he have to make up that day? Salim says no. Khalas, okay. Next one. So no. So he didn't know that it was the month of Ramadan. He ate and then found out later in the day. Made the niyyah and continued to fast. Okay? Does he have to make up that day? According to many scholars, even some from the early period, like Ata and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and this is also the ikhtiyar, the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, and As-Sa'di from the contemporaries. It's also the opinion of Ibn Hazm, is that he doesn't have to make up that day. And they use as a proof the famous hadith of Salama ibn al-Akwa. That's the hadith where the Prophet sent someone to inform the people that today is the day of Ashura. So if you've eaten, then what? Begin your fast and don't what? Eat until the end of the day. And if you have not eaten, then what? Begin your fast. So that's what they use as a proof that he doesn't have to make up that day. Because the Prophet told them, hey, if you've eaten, whatever happened before that, don't worry about it. But from the rest of the day, don't eat and count it as what? As you having fasted the day of Ashura. The second opinion is he has to what? He has to what? Make up that day. He has to make it up. And that's the opinion of Abu Hanifa, Malik, Ash-Shafi'i, Ahmad fi riwayah, one of the opinions of Imam Ahmad. And they use as a proof as they say that the person is commanded to fast what? To fast the entire month. To fast the entire month, and this is what? A sa'a, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours from the month that he didn't fast. And so it remains what? Fi dhimmatihi. It remains what? A debt that he owes to Allah until what? Until he pays it. He has to what? Fast that entire day. He didn't fast the whole day, so he has to fast the day, so he has to what? Yaqdi. He has to make it up. And the correct opinion, ya ikhwani wa khawati, is the second one. That he has to do what? He has to make up that day. So how do we answer the hadith of Salama? We answer it by saying that it's possible, the hadith is muhtamal. It's possible that the companions were aware that Ashura was obligatory, but they didn't know that that was what? That was the day. And so that hadith would then be a dalil for those who know that Ramadan is obligatory but don't know that what? It's that day. You guys see that? But it's also possible that the Prophet was informing them of the obligation on that day, that they didn't know before that. And then what? He was saying, I'm making it obligatory. You now have to fast. So they didn't know. And then they would be what? Pardoned, excused. And since the hadith is what? Muhtamal. Because it bears what? Both possibilities. We have a qa'idah. And again, that goes back to what? Man hurim al-usul, hurim al-wusul. That goes back to that. That the scholars, they say, al-hadith or al-dalil إذا تطرق إليه احتمال بطل الاستدلال به. They said if a hadith bears what? Two possible meanings and they're equally what? Possible, then we do what? We remove it from the equation and we look for what? Other evidences. And the one evidence that we do have is a qaida that says what? It says that we always err on what? The side of caution when it comes to ibadat. And also the statement of the scholars is very strong. They say he has to fast what? The whole month, and this is what? A portion of the month that he didn't fast. So that's the correct opinion, inshallah ta'ala, that he what? Yaqdi. Also, this is what? The safest opinion. The safest opinion. From the masail, another issue is one that it comes up a lot in this time of year, and that is whether or not the sighting of one country will be a sighting for what? For everyone. And I don't want to delve too much, I don't want to dwell on this, because this is one of those issues that it's one of the most thorny and one of the most highly disputed issues in the bab of what? Fasting. Okay? But what I do want to say, because we talked about this in the beginning as well, we talked about those issues related to what? How we study. You guys remember that? And one of those issues was what? And يتسع الصدر للخلاف المعتبر, that the chest has to be what? Open to what? Accepting valid difference of opinion. So the thing that I want to really focus on more than anything is talk about what? The opinions which are valid versus the opinion which is invalid. You guys see that? Because again, the scholars of old, when a scholar differed with them, but his method of reaching the conclusion he reached, which they don't agree with, was sound, they what? They were able to what? To accept it even though they didn't agree. But when his method was not sound, that's when they what? They were intolerant. You guys see the difference? So this is what I want to deal with more here than what? Sawab wa khata. Because again, thorny, dalil on every side, and a lot of the adillah, it's like, it's very strong. And the opinions are what? Very strong as well. So I want to talk about 3 opinions which the scholars have held throughout history, which are what? Which are acceptable and valid opinions, even though we know that only one of them can be right, because al-haq wahid, right? La yata'addad. The truth is one, it doesn't what? It's not numerous truths. There's 3 sound opinions, and the first one is what? Every land has its own sighting. لِكُلِّ بَلَدْ رُؤْيَةٌ. Every land has its own what? Sighting. This was the opinion of Ikrimah, Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, and others. Second opinion, رُؤْيَةُ بَلَدٍ رُؤْيَةٌ لِلْجَمِيعِ. The sighting of one country is a sighting for all. We have one moon, right? We have one moon. If it's seen anywhere in the world, then everyone should what? Fast. And that's the opinion of Al-Layth ibn Sa'd, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Al-Shafi'i, and Ahmad, the Imams of the 4 what? Madahib. And they use as a proof the hadith which is muttafaqun alayh, agreed upon, of Ibn Umar that we mentioned. إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَسُومُوا. If you see it, meaning what? If any one of you sees it, then what? فَسُومُوا. All of you should fast. You guys see that? إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ, which is, it's as if he said, إِذَا رُؤِيَ. If the halal is seen, فَسُومُوا. All of you should what? Fast. That's the opinion of the 4 Imams and Al-Layth ibn Sa'd. Got it? طيب, number 3, اختلاف المطالع. اختلاف المطالع means what? That the moon has different what? Rising points. Right? Has different rising points. And so it may rise in one region and you'll see it. It may not rise in another region and so you won't see it. So that region should fast and that region should what? Should wait until what? They complete 30 days. You guys see that? All 3 of these opinions. This opinion was the opinion of some of the Shafi'iyah, some of the scholars from the Shafi'i madhab. And it's also the ikhtiyar, the chosen opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah. The chosen opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah. All 3 of these opinions are valid. They're opinions that were held by, as you can see, great scholars from the past. And they can't be dismissed. And they can all be argued and defended. They're all defensible. Okay? So the person who holds his opinion, even if we don't share that opinion, the person who holds it, we do what? We respect them. Respect their opinion, respect their view. Ikhtilaf al-matali', that the moon has different what? Rising points. So it may rise in a region and appear, but it may not rise in another region. So this region, they would see the hilal and they should fast. This region, they didn't see it, so they have to complete 30 days. Make sense? That's what they call ikhtilaf al-matali'.
But to that, the second one can still apply. That is, seeing in one country.
Well, no, if we could say that there's ikhtilaf al-matali', but we saw it, so you have to fast. We could say that's what the second group would say. But we're just saying a third group says no. If you're in this region, you see it, you fast. If you don't see it, you don't fast. And that's how they would combine between what? The ahadeeth. Sumu li ru'yatihi. Fast when you see it. Well, we didn't see it. so we're not supposed to fast. You guys see that? So you guys see how they would argue. It's like I said, all these opinions are defensible. Only one of them is right, but they're all what? Valid. You guys understand that? But there's one opinion that's totally invalid. And that's the one we want to focus on here. That's the opinion of what? Al-Hisab al-Falaki. Using what? Calculations. If you look at the hadith of Abd'Llah ibn Umar, the hadith where he said, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَصُومُوا وَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَأَفْطِرُوا فَإِنْ هُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَاقْدِرُوا لَهُ. He said, if you see it, fast. When you see it again, break your fast. And if clouds prevent you from seeing it, then do what? Complete the month as 30 days and then begin fasting. That hadith, as it's mentioned here, is only partially narrated. There's a preface to that hadith. And the preface of the hadith, it goes like this. Inna ummatun ummiyya. We are an unlettered, and if you will, illiterate nation. La naktub wa la nahsab. We don't write and we don't calculate. Ash-shahru hakadha wa hakadha. The month is what? 1, 2, 3, 30. 1, 2, and then what? Then you do it like this, which will be what? 29. It's either going to be 30 or 29 days. Okay? So now, here the Prophet ﷺ is indicating that the Muslims should never do what? Never use calculations to determine the beginning and end of their month. Because when you put the first part of the hadith, when he said, we're an illiterate nation, we don't write and we don't what? We don't calculate. A month is either what? 30 or 29 days. Then he said what? Sumu li ru'yatihi. Or idha ra'aytumuhu fasumu. If you see it, then what? Fast. You don't see it, then what? Count the month as 30 days. You guys see that? So when you put the two together, it's as if he's saying what? The way that you go about your business, O Muslim, is that you realize that what? A month, the month prior, and the actual month are going to be either what? 30 or 29 days. Look for the month. If you see it, alhamdulillah. You don't see it, consider the month 30 days. You guys see that? He simplified it. And he said we shouldn't calculate. Also, we know that calculations existed during the time of the Prophet. Why? Because he said, نَحْنُ أُمَّةٌ أُمِّيَّةٌ لَا نَكْتُبْ وَلَا نَحْسِبْ. We're people who don't calculate, but there are other people who what? Who do. So he's not mentioning something that they're like, well, what is that? It's not like he said, we're people who don't have cell phones. You guys see what I'm saying? He's not mentioning something that doesn't exist. He's not mentioning a technology which is what? Which is after their time, that they've never come across. No, there are people who do this. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know what al-hisab is, but we don't do that. You guys see that? So it's something that existed during this time. And he didn't say, we are the people who what? We don't count. We don't do calculations, but there are other people who do, so what? So ask them. Consult them. You guys see that? He could have said, Is'alu ahl al-hisab. He could have said, ask the people of hisab. No, he said, we don't do it, and our month is this or this, so sumu li ru'yatihi. Idha ra'aytumuhu fasumu. If you see it, fast. You don't see it, don't fast. You guys see that? وعلق أي شيء علق الصيام بأي شيء برؤية الهلال لا بظهوره أو طلوعه. He connected fasting with what? With seeing the moon, not with what? It's being there. You guys see the difference? بخلاف, as opposed to what? As-salat. When he did what? He connected the prayer with what? With the time actually what? Taking place, whether you see it or not. So no one can say, Well, we use calculations for the prayer. So what's the difference? It's a big difference. Because when it came to the prayer, the Prophet connected it, linked it to what? To the time being in, whether you see it or not. But when it came to the fasting, he said what? He linked it with what? Seeing. You see it, fast. You don't see it, don't fast. He didn't say, waqt al-dhuhr. The time for dhuhr is when the sun does what? Passes the meridian. Pray when you see it pass. He didn't say that, did he? He said when it passes. However you know that it passed, it's dhuhr time. You guys see the difference? So you can't make qiyas. Because there's two different things. One of them he connected with what? The actual passing. And the other one he connected with what? The actual what? Seeing. See the difference? طيب. So now, al-hisab al-falaki, these calculations are not acceptable. One second, sweetheart, just let me do this and I'm going to come to you, okay? So now, this hisab al-falaki, these calculations are not an acceptable method for three main reasons. The first one is the hadith, the statement of the Prophet, which is a clear text indicating what? Don't use it. Don't use it, because he said, we don't what? La nahsib, we don't calculate. We don't do that. A month is either this or this, right? And he wa'allaqa ash-shahr, he linked the beginning of the month with what? With the sighting. The second reason is what we said earlier, and this is important, why I gave you this muqaddimah, that preface about the how do we study the ahkam, as-sunnah tarkiyah, the sunnah of abandonment. The Prophet himself, what? Was able, what? Remember we said, if there's something that the Prophet needs to do, there's some benefit in him doing it, and there's nothing stopping him from doing it, but he chooses not to do it, then doing that thing is what? Is bid'ah. And leaving it is actually the sunnah. So here's the Prophet who he needs to determine what? The beginning and end of the month. And al-hisab al-falaki, this astronomical calculations, would have been useful. So there was some benefit in using it. When we say he needed to use it, means what? There was some benefit in using it. But he what? Didn't use it, although there was nothing stopping him from using it. It was available. Even if they don't know it, other people know it. So the fact that it was needed, nothing stopping him from using it, but he didn't use it, indicates what? Using it is what? Bid'ah. So another reason why we say that as al-hisab al-falaki is not acceptable is what? A sunnah at-tarkiyah, the sunnah of abandonment. The Prophet abandoned it on purpose. The last reason we say al-hisab al-falaki is not acceptable is al-ijma', the agreement of the scholars, the agreement, consensus of the scholars, that these calculations are not an acceptable way to determine the beginning and ending of the month. And some people will tell you, in fact, there's a person who's not a scholar, and Islam is not his specialty, but he wrote a book advocating, defending the concept or the idea that calculations is the way to confirm the month. He wrote a book. This book came out a few years ago and there was a big firestorm about it. And one of the things that he proclaimed or claimed was that there's no ijma', there's no agreement amongst the scholars. And this is a common thing that people do, especially people of bid'ah, the people of innovation, is when they don't like something, don't agree with it, is they do what? They deny that there's what? Any ijma'. Because now, once I get rid of ijma', I get rid of the agreement, the consensus, then it's what? It's just up to interpreting what? The ahadeeth. All bets are on. But when you have ijma', that does what? That locks down the issue. Once the scholars agree on something, it can't be dalal. It has to be what? The right thing. You guys see that? That's why Ibn Taymiyyah used to say, al-ijma' min a'zam al-hujaj. He said, ijma', the agreement of the scholars, is one of the what? Strongest evidences and proofs. Because why? It just locks everything down. So at any rate, we do have the ijma' collected, and it was transmitted by Ibn Abd'Llah, is one of the scholars who transmitted it, Ibn Abd'Llah, in his book At-Tamheed. And also Al-Baji, mentioned by Ibn Hajar when he discussed this issue. He mentioned the ijma' of Al-Baji and Fath al-Bari. And Ibn Battal also mentioned it. Was-San'ani also mentioned the ijma' transmitted by Al-Baji. And all of them mentioned it or transmitted it muqirrina lahu, agreeing that what? This is the case. The scholars are agree. There's no difference of opinion. Got it? So those are the three reasons why we say what? Al-Hisab al-Falaki is not acceptable. Make sense?
And it also goes to show that probably calculations were there even then.
Well, we know they were there because he said, La nahsib. We don't count. Make sense? طيب. Do we need to stop because it's 6? Or can we go a little longer? Right now it's 6. Yeah, is it 6 o'clock as Al-Asr? Really? Do you want to stop? Do you want us to stop, your Shaykh? Eh. Well, I just want to do a little bit more so that when we finish the dinner, we'll be able to finish the ahadeeth. So can we go to maybe a quarter after? And then pray? Allah Azza khair, Shaykh. Allah Azza khair. طيب. Okay, go ahead, Ahmed.
Hadith 532, narrated by Hafsa, radiallahu anha, mother of the believers. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No fasting is accepted from the one who does not commit his intention to fast before dawn." Reported by Hamza, At-Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, preponderate it as mawquf. Ibn Khuzaymah and Ibn Hibban authenticated it as marfu'.
Okay, so the correct... No, you're going to be good, Ahmed. I just need to make this comment. So the correct takhrij, the correct statement about the hadith is that it is mawquf, meaning it is a statement of Hafsa, not the statement of the Prophet. It still remains a hujjah, it still remains a proof, right? Because Hafsa cannot say something like this unless she heard it from the Prophet. She can't say something like this unless she heard it from the Prophet. So it's still authentic, it's still a hujjah, but it's just her statement and not the statement of the Prophet. Go ahead. Amr.
Ad-Daraqutni has, no fasting is accepted from the one who does not make the intention to fast at night. Hadith 533, narrated Aisha radiallahu anha. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to visit me one day and asked, "Do you have anything to eat?" I said, "No." He said, "Then I am fasting." Then he came to me another day and I said, "I have been given a present of some hays." He said, "Show it to me, for I had began the day fasting." Then he ate. Reported by Muslim.
Mumtaz. Okay, this one, these two ahadith, you can give them the heading as you see in your outline. Intention and resolving to fast before dawn. Intention and resolving to fast before dawn. If you look at the ahadith, they give you the impression that there's a contradiction, or they appear contradictory, don't they? There's no fasting for the one who does not have the fast, or does have the niyyah to fast before dawn. But then the Prophet ﷺ, he came to one of his wives, Aisha radiallahu anha, and he asked, "Did they have anything?" She said, "No." He said, "Then what?" "I'm fasting." Munshi'un ni'at as-sawm. Now I'm what? Initiating the intention to fast. You guys see that? Gives you that impression, doesn't it? And then the next one, he comes and he says, "Do you have anything?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "Okay, give it to me because I had begun the day fasting." So it seems on the surface that there's what? That the two are contradictory. But know that the Quran will never, part of the Quran will never contradict part of the Quran. Likewise, the ahadith, the authentic ahadith, the Messenger of Allah will never what? Contradict each other. Know that. So whenever there's a contradiction or apparent contradiction, we always have to do what? Take a step back look at it again, and see where we may have what? Misunderstood. So how do we reconcile between the two hadithain, the two hadith? The first one is talking about the obligatory fast of Ramadan. That you have to, the night before the dawn, some point during the night, you have to make the intention to fast the next day. And this intention, as we said earlier, could occur by you what? Having that what? That resolve, making that resolution to fast. Or by doing something which indicates that you have that resolution, like akalat as-suhoor, taking your what? Your suhoor, or setting your alarm clock to wake up for suhoor. All of that is indicative, or taking out what? You know, I want some lamb chops for suhoor. So you take out what? The lamb chops, so they'll what? Defrost. You guys see that? When you take that out with that intention, then what? That becomes what? The resolve. All those indications of what? The resolve. So when it comes to the obligatory fast of Ramadan, you have to have the niyyah every night before what? The next day. And that's the meaning of the hadith of Hafsa. There's also a similar narration from Ibn Umar to the same effect. And there's no fast, regardless of in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan, without what? A niyyah. Bil ijma'. No fast without niyyah. But the question is, when do you have to have the niyyah? The obligatory fast, you have to have it what? The night before. And that's the opinion of Malik, Shafi, and Ahmad. And they use the narration of Hafsa and Ibn Umar. Abu Hanifa, he says, Laysa lazim. It's not necessarily necessary. You can have the niyyah anytime during the day, and he uses what? The hadith of Salama ibn al-Akwa, the one about Ashura. But remember what we said, that hadith is what? Muhtamal. So we go back to what? The statement of Ibn Umar and Hafsa. Also, that's what? Safer. Safer to have the niyyah beforehand. Tayyib. All right, what about the non-obligatory fast? Suppose I'm just going to fast. I wake up one day, I decide, look, I just want to fast today. But it's already what? 8, 9 o'clock. I didn't have the intention beforehand. Well, that particular one, it appears that you can do what? You can start the niyyah from what? From that time. And that's because of the hadith of what? Aisha. But some of the scholars said, no, that hadith is also what? Muhtamal. It's what? It has two possible meanings. Could be that when the Prophet came and said, do you have anything? And she said, no. Could be that the Prophet is saying, okay, well, since you don't have anything, I might as well fast. I didn't have the intention before, but now I'm making the intention. It's also possible the Prophet what? He had made the intention, but when he asked her and she had nothing, so he was intending to maybe perhaps break it, but then when she had nothing, he said what? Then I'm what? Continuing my fast. Both of those meanings are possible. But the scholars answer that by saying, yes, but the statements of what? The fatwa of the Sahaba, their verdicts when it came to what? The non-obligatory fast are indicative of the fact that what? You can have the niyyah at any time during the day. So that's how we basically reconcile between the two ahadith. Make sense? Any questions about that? Clear? Tafadali.
So I had a question that if you don't have the niyyah to fast like after Fajr, and then you just make the niyyah like around like the time you pray for Fajr, but then and then you fast will be accepted?
Yeah, if it's a non-obligatory fast, yes. But if it's the obligatory fast of Ramadan, we need to have the niyyah before Fajr. Anytime before Fajr. Anytime before the dawn. No, if it were Sha'ban, no, anytime. Anytime. All right, go ahead. Let's do one more set of a hadith if we can.
Hadith 534. Narrated Sa'id bin Sa'ad radiallahu anhu that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said,
Allahumma salli wa sallam Muhammad.
people will continue to be all right as long as they hasten in breaking of the fast. Agreed upon. And in the version of the Tirmidhi, on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said that Allah Azza wa Jal said, the most beloved slave to me in my slaves is the one who hastens in breaking of the fast.
That second hadith, the hadith of Tirmidhi, it has a narrator. His name is Qurra ibn Abdul Rahman. He's a weak narrator. Qurra ibn Abdul Rahman. And because of his presence in the chain, scholars like Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala and Shu'aib al-Arnaut, they declare this hadith as a weak hadith. So go ahead, Amr, keep going.
Hadith 535,
Mm-hmm.
narrated Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, take a meal just before dawn, for there is blessing in sahur, taking a meal at that time, agreed upon.
Jamil, keep going.
536, narrated Salman bin Amr al-Dabbi radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, when one of you breaks his fast, he should do so with some dates. But if he cannot get any, he should break his fast with water, for it is purifying.
Mumtaz. Mumtaz. Perfect. Okay. All right. So these ahadith, these 4 ahadith that Amr just read, we can give them the heading as you find the outline from the recommended practices of ritual fasting. So now this section gives us some indication of some of the recommended practices of fasting. And there's a few masail, there's some issues that we'll just mention ala ujala, because we mentioned a lot of this when we talked about the virtues of fasting. So the first thing is istihbab ta'jil al-fitr. These ahadith, they teach us that one of the virtues, or one of the things that is very meritorious when we're fasting, is that we hasten what? We hasten breaking the fast. It also lets us know that the suhoor, this meal that we take, is mustahab. We get a reward for taking this meal. And if you notice, the Prophet said, tasahharu. This is an imperative. He said, take this meal. This is an imperative. And using imperative indicates what? That something is obligatory. But the sarif, the thing that tells us that this is not obligatory, but it's highly recommended, is the ijma', the agreement of the scholars that it's what? Recommended and not obligatory. And this ijma' was transmitted to us by Ibn al-Mundhir, I'm sorry. Also, delaying the suhoor, we mentioned it previously, is recommended. You should delay the suhoor. And we mentioned the hadith of Anas on the authority of Zayd ibn Thabit about that. And the last thing I want to mention here is that the Prophet said, فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ barakah, that there is a blessing, there is barakah in the suhoor. So what is this barakah? What is the barakah in suhoor? The barakah in suhoor is one of 2 things, or possibly both of them. Is that it is the thing which distinguishes our suhoor, the meal that we take, is the thing which distinguishes between our siyam and the siyam of Ahl Kitab. The thing which distinguishes between our fasting and their fasting is that we have this akalat as-suhoor. We have this pre-dawn meal, this pre-fast meal. They don't have that. And this is authentically narrated by Muslim authority Amr ibn al-As, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَصْلُ مَا بَيْنَ سِيَامِنَا وَسِيَامِ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ أَكَلَتْ السُّهُورِ. The thing which distinguishes between our fast and the fast of the people of the book is this pre-dawn meal. We have this, they don't have it. That's one of the things is what? Suhoor barakah. Because one of the things that Islam is keen to do is to give the Muslim a distinct identity. Give him an identity which is what? Distinguishes him from what? From the other people. And he's supposed to be keen to do those things. So anything which will distinguish him from the Ahlul Kitab, he's supposed to what? Do those things. One of those things is what? Eating the suhoor. The other barakah, or the other clarification of what is this barakah that scholars have given, is something we talked about earlier, that with this suhoor, what happens? Tataqawwa. You get strength from this suhoor. It gives you the strength to what? To fast. And so that is the barakah that is contained in suhoor. It is what? The quwwah, the strength that it gives you to fast. So that's the other barakah. طيب. And I think we'll stop there, 6:15. Okay, we're good. We'll stop there. And I think we're in a good place. So, هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد.